welcome back to our service. So how happy I am to have you all. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering a little bit today. That's because I spoke at Fairfax Circle Church this morning. This is my second message, so you have to understand I'm tired, but I'll do a good job of presenting the message. But it was a joy to be able to connect with the body of Fairfax Circle Church. I was well received. I sent our regard to them, appreciating their support and love, and asking their continuous prayer for our ministry as well. So they told me that they would visit us time to time at 2 o'clock and stop by to bless us. So let's see what happens. But it's really great to have another church alongside us, supporting and praying for us. And we look forward to collaborate with them in community ministries and so forth. So I'm really excited about this relationship. So today's message is help my unbelief. Help my unbelief. Let's think about churches of Jesus Christ in the world. I believe we are in a bad position today. Listening to the media and what's going on in this world, and just the general conception about church and the role of church in this era is really hard to grasp. And we have, generally, church has a bad reputation, and we are not accomplishing much in this era, and our trajectory is not so promising either. And I was looking at our church. I mean, it has been 7 years since we planted this church. Can you believe that? 7 years. And throughout those years, God has done amazing things. And I was recollecting all those people who went through our ministry, one by one, and how their lives were impacted by our ministry. And I thought about many works that we got to do in love and sacrifice, and we are really grateful for that. And I thought of the way God kept us through the pandemic, and then actually God helped us to expand our online ministry and with a new location at the center of Fairfax as well. And as Tiffany prayed, it's really great to have second family here, community, which means a lot to each one of us, and that's very valuable. And think about God, what God wants to do through us in the future, and that excites us, thinking what would that look like. And we all agree that God is definitely in the midst of us as we gather together to worship and fellowship and try to grow in Jesus Christ. But at the same time, we also realize that we are struggling as a church to grow. It's really hard to grow in this era, right? Bringing new people in and really being able to witness to non-believer to receive Jesus Christ in their heart is really hard in this age. So I think we are sometimes growing discouraged and anxious and sometimes frustrated because we feel like we are not going anywhere, and then we feel like we are stuck. And this disappointment and anxiety weighs our heart down to wonder if God wants us to keep on going. And I know many of us are struggling with this, as I do. And I question a lot, God, is this something that we should keep on doing? And if we do need to keep on doing, how should we do it better? And that has been my prayer and my thought throughout the week. Today, let's talk about the survival of the church. And I preached the same message at Fairfax Circle Church. And we have to agree that something significant must be done with the church if we are to bring people to Jesus Christ. The environments are a little different and tough. The questions to raise are, how can we as a church show the world that we have the answer that they are looking for? And what should we do to ignite a fire of revival to pave the way for the return of Jesus Christ? Our natural tendency would be just do better. Better programs, better messages, better music, better social work, and better marketing we think would do the job. But the truth is that we cannot compete with the world in those areas because the world can do much better than we can on every criterion. Wouldn't you agree? I want you to imagine yourself as a non-Christian person who has negatively impacted by church and Christianity, but still willing to explore the possibility of church. So you are looking for a church that will satisfy your quest. Now, what kind of church would you look for? What are the critical things that needs to be there in order for you to be part of that church? A program that will blow your mind, a concert quality music, interesting messages like TED Talks, creative community projects, or just nice people. What would you look for? I believe that you will be looking for God things, right? God thing. You want to see tangible things that will prove that God is real. You want to hear what God has to say to you. You want to see something only God can do, and you want to meet real people with real issues, with real answers. Wouldn't you? I mean, why would you come to church if there's nothing real? What all of us wants to see at church is God in reality. God working, doing the things that we could not even imagine. That's what everybody wants to see at church. So I believe we should stop competing with the unbelieving world. Instead, we should offer what the world cannot produce. We need to show them what is only possible through God. And today, I want to take you to Mark chapter 9 and talk about the dilemma that we are in. Number 2, Jesus' solution to our problem. And number 3, the breakthrough we need. Number 1, what is the dilemma that we are in? Verse 14 and on says this. And when they came to the disciples, they saw a great crowd around them, the scribes arguing with them. What are you arguing about with them? And someone from the crowd answered him, Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he has a spirit that makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, and he forms and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast it out, and they were not able. There are 5 main characters here. One is the disciples of Jesus Christ, and scribes, the crowd, the father, and the boy. Let's think about the disciples of Jesus Christ. They are chosen by Jesus Christ. They are the followers of Jesus Christ. They were the eyewitnesses of great miracles by Jesus. And they were authorized to cast out demons and heal the sick. And previously, they were successful. They were awesome disciples. But it was only a week ago that Peter famously confessed, Jesus, you are the Son of the living God. And he got complimented for his confession. Few of them just experienced the glory of the Son of God on the high mountain a day before. They just came down from the high mountain. But the problem was that they couldn't help this father. Let's think about the father. Father had a son in great trouble. He was heartbroken by his son's condition. He understood that it was a spiritual battle. So he came to Jesus, but then he ended up meeting his disciples, and he got frustrated by their inability to heal his son. So he was frustrated and angry. Now the scribes and the crowd were confused, and they were busy arguing, because lack of the work of God in them invited scribes and bystanders to argue about what was happening, and there were confusion, chaos, and disappointment. And the poor boy was being tortured by Satan without a hope of getting away from Satan's grip. So we see right here is a huge dilemma. There are genuine disciples of Jesus Christ who was commissioned to the work of God. And there are there are people who are genuinely seeking God's help and miracle. And they are coming to the disciples, but then nothing is happening. Right? Nothing is happening, and everybody's arguing, disappointed, frustrated, and angry. And I think this sort of depicts today's churches. Right? A lot of people come, and yet they find out maybe there's nothing here. So my question is, what are we supposed to do? Right? What are we supposed to do in this dilemma? And as a pastor and as a disciple of Jesus Christ, I agonize over this current state of the church. God, where did we go wrong? Why can't your church show your power to the world? Why are we busy arguing while people are looking for real answers? Why are our loved ones still lost in darkness? Where are you in this? So the dilemma that we are in is that we know who Jesus is. We personally experience the power of Jesus. The desperate world comes to us for an answer. So we try harder and harder, and yet nothing happens. And everyone is frustrated. So let's move on to the next subject, Jesus' solution to our problem. What did Jesus say about the dilemma that we were in position? Verse 19 says, "And he answered them, O faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him to me." We can see right here, Jesus was equally frustrated. Jesus was angry. How long? I mean, guys, I spent 3 years showing, teaching, and empowering you, and you still cannot do this, right? And this word, the harsh words that he said, faithless generation, in Matthew 17:17 says, "O faithless and twisted generation." NLT translation says, "You faithless and corrupt people." He didn't say this to scribes. He didn't say it to the crowd. He said this to his own disciples. To Jesus, faithlessness was twisted. It caused the twistedness and the confusion and corruption into this generation. Jesus was blaming the disciples of Jesus Christ not having the proper faith that caused these people into faithless generation and corrupt generation. Jesus pointed out, your lack of faith frustrates me. Your lack of faith is the cause of faithless, twisted, and corrupt generation. This is why you are powerless and embarrassed. I came to earth to show who God is, yet your lack of faith stops people from seeing God. And Jesus told the Father, bring him to me. And Jesus miraculously healed him from demon possession and the disease, and the boy got free from the struggle. And Jesus afterwards just gave a few answers in chapter 9, verse 28. When he had entered the house, his disciples asked him privately, "Why could we not cast it out?" And he said to them, "This kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer." So disciples was true in their concern. Why couldn't we? What is wrong with us? Why couldn't we do the job that we were supposed to? And Jesus pointed out, because this kind, and this is really notable, this kind basically means a bigger and harder problem that requires greater treatment. Remember, before, disciples didn't have any problem casting out demons and healing sick people. But this kind was a little different. It was a lot more severe, urgent, and harsh, and it was a lot heavier than before. And that required disciples' renewed faith and deeper spirituality. Martin Lloyd-Jones explained in his book Revival about this passage this way. He said, "You have failed in this particular case because the power that you had and which was sufficient and adequate for the other cases is inadequate and of no value here. they are not enough. And until you and I come to see that, and until we see the greater need, we will just continue as we are in our utter ineffectiveness, in spite of all our efforts, organizings, and endeavors. Basically, what he was saying is that, as we are facing new problems, we need to up our faith as well. As we know, our families and our country and the world is going through unprecedented battle, right? And church is caught in between those struggles. And sometimes I think, what is supposed to do? I think church needs to realize that this is this kind of issue. This is unlike any other. We are up against stronghold, up against higher power that we cannot deal with without the spiritual prayer. So Jesus told the disciples and us two different ways that we can fight this battle. One is concentrated prayer. Because Jesus said this kind cannot be driven out. We want to drive out by anything but prayer and fasting. Prayer and fasting. I think this is the very thing that we need to do. Do more prayer, do more fasting to get the real power of God. Martin Lloyd-Jones said in his book, the value of fasting is that it enables you to give your undivided attention to a subject. So what our Lord said to his disciples is this: you will never deal with this sort of problem until you have been praying, concentrating in prayer, waiting upon Lord until He has filled you with the power. When you know you have got it, then you go out with authority. That is the way, and that is the only way. We understand that the real battle is fought in the heavenly realms, in the spiritual world. And then that battle manifests in different ways in our lives, in physical realm. So in order to overcome and combat physical issues, we understand that we need to tackle spiritual issues and win in the heavenly realms. And the only way that we can win this spiritual battle so that we can have greater impact on our physical lives is by fasting and prayer. Because Martin Lloyd-Jones says that's the only way. Because the fasting and prayer grasps your undivided attention and force you to put your everything in it and then really, really pray. And for many of us, prayer is really hard. Many times prayer is hard for me as well. That's why I have to try to pray a little more. But think about fasting. Fasting is even harder. Fasting is counterintuitive, counter-survival. No one wants to not eat and die, right? So we are trying so hard not to miss any meal. So that is why when we fast, it means a lot to God. Because it brings us pain. It brings us discipline. And it brings us in desperation. That's why when we pray and fast, God listens to us. And God pays attention because our whole attention is on Him. Right? And that's why fasting prayer brings a breakthrough that is otherwise impossible. So the question on fasting is this: how desperate are you? How much do we realize the state of our church and the things that is going on in this world that almost puts us into the mode of fasting and prayer? I think desperation is the gift of God. Sometimes we need to pray for desperation when we are not desperate. Because we don't realize how bad it is. So we need to ask the Spirit, God, help me feel what you are feeling. Help me see what you are seeing. Help me hear what you are hearing. And so help me become desperate for your kingdom. Because when you have that desperation, then your heart yearns for answer, for spiritual breakthrough, for miracles in your life. Until you have that desperation, you will not act upon your faith. That's why desperation is the key. And Jesus said, pray for the desperation, but when you have desperation, you have to act upon it by praying, concentrated, and by fasting. Second way that Jesus told us was by having impossible faith. The parallel passage in Matthew 17:20 explains another reason for our failure. Jesus said, you don't have enough faith. Jesus told them, I tell you the truth. If you have faith, even as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it would move. Nothing would be impossible. How can we tell when there's an absence of faith in our lives? When we stop believing in the impossible and we settle for living a small life. That's a very sign that you don't really believe in God. When you compromise, with small life, with no ambition, with no challenge in your life, when you stop dreaming what could be possible in God's blessing, I believe you have lost your faith because you're no longer believing God of impossibility. You just compromise with situational facts. And that's exactly what Jesus was saying. You are looking at the boy, you're looking at the people, you're looking at yourself and circumstances, and you compromise. You lack faith. You didn't have faith that when you pray, when you command, God will intercept and do and show supernatural power. The real enemy we must resist and conquer is unbelief. One of the most frustrating things in life is trying to move mountains by yourself. But the worst is not challenging the impossible at all. What matters is not the size of the mountain, but the size of your faith in God. Think about that. We many times worry about the size of the mountain, size of the problems and struggles that you are up against right now. Whoa, maybe I should just compromise and then kind of ease up. But God is not focused on the size of the mountain because mountains are usually big and unmovable. It's humanly impossible. That's why God says you got to have faith. It's not the size of the mountain, but it's the size of your faith. If it's small, genuine, and desperate, that small mountain with God's DNA in there can be effectual to move mountain and bring breakthrough in your life. So the question is, are you willing to believe the God of the impossible and pray as if everything depended on your prayer? That is the key. If you're not doing that, according to Jesus, you have unbelief. Your faith is not there. The way that God wants us to live this life and the way that God wants us to do church is by having this impossible faith, by challenging the impossible. When people come and seek help, we need to ask God to do what He can do, not something that we can do nicely and accommodate and something that we can provide. The moment that we rely on God, we know that God will bring breakthrough. But the next point is really important because a lot of people hear this message up to that far will think, oh, well, I am sorry, I don't have faith. I don't know much about the Bible. I don't have it. I never prayed that way before, and I just don't have faith. And then they start feeling guilty about it because I don't have faith. I don't go to church, and I don't really pray. So they go into guilty mode, and then they get stuck. That's why the next phase is really important because it's all about experiencing breakthrough that we really need. Mark chapter 9, verse 21 says this, and Jesus asked his father, how long has this been happening to him? And he said, from childhood. So father understood this is a, year-long issue that we couldn't solve. Verse 22 says, and it has often cast him into the fire and into water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. And Jesus said to him, if you can, all things are possible for one who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, I believe, help my unbelief. See, father had decent faith, if you really think about it. He realized that it was a spiritual issue. So he brought his son to Jesus, looking for a miracle. So he did have faith. But at the same time, he had doubts. He understood that it was an old problem, and nothing made a difference in his son's condition. He understood that it was an impossible case. All he wanted was, Jesus, if you can ease up my problem, I'll be okay with that. Right? He didn't even expect Jesus to heal him completely. All it was, if you can do anything to ease up, maybe stop convulsing, or maybe stop, passing out. Maybe if you can do a little bit, I'll be okay with that. And then Jesus said, What do you mean by if you can? The faith that you have to come to me with is the total faith. It's not compromised faith, but you should not doubt on me. I need total faith from you. That's when Father realized that this opportunity could vanish soon. He cried out immediately, I believe, help my unbelief. He didn't want to lose the opportunity. He only had half of faith, but he still came to Jesus and told Jesus, hey, Jesus, I don't have the total faith that you're looking for. I don't have much experience, right? Maybe I didn't do my part, but I am bringing half of the total faith. This is all I have. Would you please help fill in the other help so that I can present you the total faith that you're looking for, right? And that was his humble and honest prayer. And we understand that God never rejects humble and honest prayer. So this is the breakthrough, I believe. Many times we think, I need to have perfect faith, perfect knowledge. I need to pray a lot, really clean up my life. And I need to do all that in order to have this qualification to come out to God and say, God, help my problem. I'm kind of okay to receive that now. And many people stop right there because they are not. And they never ask. They never can go through and experience the breakthrough because they stop. But the amazing thing about this father is he realized that he lacked faith. And yet he didn't give up. He said, I believe. Generally, I believe you. You are my God. But those things that I'm lacking, I'm asking you to fill that in for me so that I may be able to come with total faith. And this is what breaks breakthrough in our lives. So let's think about some of the things that you are struggling with. Many of the things are internal. Some people struggle with anxiety, anger, some bad habits, addictions, right? And some relationship, finance, health. It could be many different things. And the only way to show other people that God is real is when you really tackle your real issue with total faith, with prayer and concentrated prayer and impossible faith, that you experience God's amazing power. And when other people see that you experience that, that is like a wildfire that can spread. So imagine right here, 8 of us, or 9 of us right here, each one of us pray this kind of prayer with our own struggle. No matter what it is, you get that and really, really pray and fast and pray and then experience the breakthrough and experience amazing power of God in our lives. What would that make you do? You're going to be so excited, so joyful, and you're going to call your friends. And whenever you meet your friends, you're going to tell them the story. Hey, I went to church, I had this problem, I prayed, and God did this. Isn't that amazing? And we're like, whoa, is that real? Yeah, it happened to me. It happened to me yesterday, right? when we share that the power of God with other people, that's when church does what it ought to do. It's not the theory, it's not the system that we are looking for, but it's genuine, transformed life that needs to be presented to the world. So thinking back to our church situation, there are many things that we wish we can do, right? I wish that we have 50 people here and 100 people here just singing loud and having some instruments and really reaching out to the community and enough resources to do many different things. I wish all that. But I have to question myself, is that what really church is all about? Doing the program and doing so many works, having more people, have something to show off to other people that we are doing well and we are succeeding in our church planting endeavor? I don't think so. As I was praying, God told me, you don't have to worry about that, right? The increase in the size of the church and the resources is me. Thank you. Moving the mountain is on me, right? Many times I try to move the mountain. I try to make things happen. And I fail all the time. And I feel miserable not being able to lead that way. And God's saying, don't worry about that. That's my job. It's my church. I say, I will build my church. But then what is my job, Lord? And God says, you need to become my true disciple. You need to really believe right here. You need to pray as if everything depended on your prayer. And you need to tackle and ask for impossible things in your life. As you do that, as you experience God answering your prayer, that's the only way that we can truly witness to other people and be the church that other people would look for. That's the only way, right? So this is the four things that I want to challenge you with. The practical actions that we need to take is this. Number one, name your mountains. We all realize that we have mountains that we would like to go over. But when you ask, what is your mountain? I say, I don't know. There are like 50 other things. No. You need to be specific. Whether it's doubts, addiction, anger, and whatever it is, you need to pray to God and find the name of it. God, it is my fear that is mountain to me. You need to name that, okay? It is my anxiety that I need to climb over, right? And it is, my relationship or some type of addiction that is the mountain to me. Unless you name your own mountain, you cannot tackle it, right? So acknowledge your mountain. Second action is to stop denying. Because we tend to take things lightly, and then we deny the seriousness of the problem. We deny the urgency of the problem. Many times we deny God's power as if He can do anything about it. We deny the work of the Holy Spirit that is continuously working in our hearts. And we deny all this possibility, God's promises, and what God is trying to lead us. We deny all that, and we stay idle, doing nothing about it. Second action that we need to take is stop denying. What are you denying? Are you denying your reality? Are you denying God's power and the power that is within you? We need to start accepting what God is already doing in our heart and really tackle the issue. And number 3 is engage in concentratory prayer, as I explained before. Set up a plan for an extended time of prayer. Because I know if you don't plan your prayer, you will not pray. Especially for an hour, extended prayer. No, it will not just happen. Right? So you need to put in your calendar, you need to schedule, God, this is so serious and so important to me that I'm going to allocate 1 hour of prayer, right, to cry out to you and get an answer. What about fasting? I know it is hard, but what if you tried one day? Or maybe one meal? What about the whole week? I mean, we try to do that at the beginning of the year, but it's a daunting thing. But it's something that you would do if you definitely need something. So it's the challenge. You need to kind of venture out to the possibility of fasting, pray, and then another thing is do not stop praying until God gives you peace. A lot of time we pray and then leave it up to God. God, since I prayed, you do the rest. No. In my prayer life, I pray until God gives me peace. If I'm still anxious and fearful and worry about issue, that means I still need to pray. Maybe a week, month, I still need to keep on praying until God gives me peace. Then I know that God is working and I need to get on to the next step. Right? So we need to continue to pray. Last action that we need to take is risk in faith. Question, what do you need to stop doing? It's an actionable item. What do you need to start doing? If you don't have this actionable item, probably you're going to stay the same. The next step is to count the cost and visualize the outcome. Right? It's many times we don't count the cost that we get, disappointed. Oh, I didn't know it'll take this much out of me. No. Jesus said you need to count the cost, but also envision the future outcome. Right? If God answered me, if I persist through this can happen in my life. My son can be healthy again. Right? I will experience amazing power of God to tell other people about. Those vision, those future promise is the one that will make you count the cost and still go forward with that challenge. So a breakthrough needs to start with us. What this world need is to see God's people living by the power. God's people moving the mountains by faith. God's people humbly cry out for this generation. God's people who can show the world what only God can do. Just imagine what God can do through small number of faithful believers like us. Right? This is God's church. Hey, let's boost up our faith. Let's trust God and let's really tackle each other's mountain so that we can have this amazing testimony of God's power in our lives. That's the first step that we can expand our church. Let's all pray.